Keeping young people safe in the city in the summer. Ahead on Face the State, a massive teen takeover at the St. Catherine's Fun Fest in Bexley brought the issue front and center, but Columbus City leaders have been working on it since long before this chaos. Columbus City Council President Shannon Hardin joins me to talk about new legislation taking on youth safety, including changing the curfew. Plus,
I no longer believe the death penalty is a deterrent to murder.
so now Governor DeWine wants to abolish it. Why his thinking on the death penalty has dramatically changed, and reaction to it from other Ohio leaders on both sides of the debate. And all aboard? You might be able to jump on a train in the next few years. Plans are underway to bring passenger rail back to Central Ohio, but what still needs to happen? Dublin Mayor Chris Amorose Grooms is the new head of a key passenger rail council. Hear her focus to keep the effort on track. Face the State starts now. Thanks for joining us for Face the State, and a very happy Father's Day to all you dads out there. I'm Doug Petcash. It's also the first day of summer, a time kids are set free from school to go out and have a little more fun, but also a time they could get into a little danger or trouble. Right now, the city of Columbus is working on new juvenile safety legislation. In early April, Columbus City Council and community leaders held this public hearing to talk about ways to keep young people safe. As part of it, they discussed youth crime and violence. City Council President Shannon Hardin said that night he's working on legislation addressing the city curfew, truancy, and parental responsibility. Then, 2 weeks ago, a massive teen takeover forced the cancellation of St. Catherine's Fun Fest in Bexley and ended with nearly a dozen arrests. Police say as many as 130 cruisers responded. The takeover spurred more talk about tightening up the city's curfew. City Council will discuss the new legislation at its meeting tomorrow and the following Monday, June 29th, when it is expected to vote on it. Joining me now to talk about the issues and the new legislation is Columbus City Council President Shannon Hardin. Sir, first of all, thanks for being here and happy Father's Day to you.
Doug, same to you. Thank you so much for having me for this very important conversation.
Absolutely, you're welcome. First of all, now that a couple weeks have passed since the big incident at
Yeah.
St. Catherine's, and you've had time to maybe digest it a little more, what are your thoughts on it? What are the takeaways?
That two things can be true at the same time. That at the end of the day, these are young people, and that we don't want to over-criminalize anyone, but also that we have to have expectations and for safety of our young people, but safety for our community as well. And that we have to make sure that those community norms are set, that those expectations are understood, and that at the end of the day, that if safety is our number one priority, then the safety of our young people and those that they engage with has to be at the top of our priority list. And that's why we have been having this conversation well before the St. Catherine's event.
I was going to say, I do want to be clear that this has been going on, the discussion with you and other leaders about juvenile safety. So you're talking about new legislation.
Yeah.
Have all, so what is included in this legislation?
So first of all, a lot of folks don't even know that we have a current curfew on the law. Now, we have not talked about it much, and maybe so because it starts at midnight.
I was going to say, I guess we should say it's midnight for 17 to 13-year-olds, right?
Midnight for 13 to 17-year-olds, which I think we can all agree is too late. That has not even been up for debate in any of the conversations that we've had. What we are looking to do is update the current curfew law for 13 and under, juveniles 13 and under. The current law says that it's after sunset. Well, sunset changes. That's a weird way to enforce. So we're going to just say 9 p.m. for 13 and under. 9 p.m. will be the curfew. For those 13 through 17-year-olds, we're taking the curfew from midnight to 4:30 a.m. and bringing it to 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. All of these requests are on behest of not just community leaders and parents, but also our chief of police, who said that if you look around the country, we actually were an outlier when it came to curfew laws being on the books, but also enforcement.
Why is it necessary?
Well, again, I think that it's really important as a community that we set community expectations and norms. In our city, what do we expect or what do we think is a safe time and place for our children to be? What we also are doing, going a step further, is moving forward with parental responsibility component to this curfew enforcement. The first offense is not a citation, it is education. Mom, Dad, do you know that do you know that the curfew has changed?
Yeah.
And two, we are bringing your child home. We are connecting you back with your child to make sure that they are in safe being. But if those continue, if the child continues to be out, continues to break curfew, continues to engage in other activities, then the engagement with the parent will increase to encourage them and with support to make sure that they know where
Are
their
you
child
talking
is.
about fines or
It will
things like
it will
that?
go to a fine.
But after so many
After
violations.
a certain number of violations. We want to make sure that this is not punitive, that we know the strains that many parents have. Folks are working later. Folks have different challenges. We do not want to be punitive. We want to be a partner. What I've said before is I actually want the first engagement of correcting a young person's behavior to be from a parent, not a police. And the best way that we can do that is to support the parent in playing that role. We are setting these norms, setting these expectations for Columbus, saying that we are not just going to have a safe summer, but this is our expectations throughout the year.
So you're not looking at then as a hindrance for a parent, but changing the curfew as kind of a resource for them to say, hey, letting their kids know that this is what the expectation is.
My son's only 5 years old, but we already sometimes get into that negotiation stage. He
wins most of the time, probably.
This is for the parents. Sometimes you have to say, it's not on us saying that you have to be in by 10 p.m. The city says you have to be in at 10 p.m. This is an additional support to all of those folks who are raising young people. Again, these are norms that we are saying in our city. This is our expectation. And we don't think that this is a silver bullet. We think this is part of a much larger list of comprehensive reforms that we want to take to keep young people safe.
And speaking of that, you're also talking about a truancy aspect to this too, for missing school.
For sure. This is, again, we started this conversation last July. We understand, again, if you're talking about safety being our top priority, nothing can be more important to our safety than our young people. We know that curfew laws impact safety, but we also know that truancy is the first indicator of a young person going off track. It's also a first indicator of a young person going off track in school, not even in violence. And so we believe the city, and we just held last week, our first joint committee hearing of the Columbus City School Board and the City of Columbus.
The new partnership.
This will be one of those conversations that we center there. How can we, the city, play a better role at supporting our young people throughout the school year? And so we are working to move this curfew legislation on June 29th.
And you expect it to pass?
I do expect it to pass. I'm asking my colleagues for their full support. I know we have a lot of support from the community. We also want to make sure that we don't just center enforcement as the only thing that we are doing. We have to remember that we put out tens of millions of dollars for youth summer programming to make sure that there are also additional resources. We have our pools open. We have our library and reading challenges going. So this is a piece of the puzzle. It is not the end game to how we believe we'll keep young people safe.
You preempted my next question, which is, do you feel like the city is doing enough to give kids the other alternatives, other opportunities to stay out of trouble, I guess?
I don't know if the word is enough. I think we always have to do more when we invest in young people. But what I do know is that there are options and opportunities out there for young people. We want to continue to make those investments, to continue to work with faith leaders and neighborhood leaders, sports groups, to make sure that there are the opportunities for young people to be busy and be successful and thrive this summer. But we do also want to make sure that that we set these norms that says, okay, after you had a great day throughout the summer, that at 9:30 start heading home.
Yeah. So people will have a chance to weigh in on this if they would like to, right? At the meeting tomorrow night with the 21st and also the 29th.
Yes.
Okay. Council President Shannon Hardin, thanks for coming in talking about this new legislation.
Thank you
Always
so much for having
appreciate
me.
talking to you. Thank you. It's a debate that has gone on seemingly forever, with people passionate on both sides. The death penalty. Coming up next, Governor Mike DeWine came down forcefully on one side of the debate, a 180-degree reversal for him, why he's now calling for the death penalty to be abolished. And later, would you jump on a train to get to work or go on a trip if you could? Plans are in motion to get passenger rail back on track in Central Ohio. We'll get the latest update from the new chair of a key passenger rail group on whether things are chugging along.
I believe Ohio should abolish the death penalty. The legislature can take this action, and I believe they should take this action.
A major announcement from Governor Mike DeWine last week. He called on the legislature to abolish the death penalty in Ohio. The governor has delayed every execution since he took office in 2019. He says that's because lethal injection drugs have not been available. Now, he argues no more executions should ever be carried out in Ohio. At this news conference, Governor Mike DeWine explained how his thinking on the death penalty has evolved over the last 45 years, from voting to reinstate the death penalty in 1981 as a deterrent of violent crime.
For me, it was the moral justification for having a death penalty.
To today in 2026.
I no longer believe the death penalty is a deterrent to murder. The moral justification I had for voting for the death penalty simply no longer exists.
He argues the lack of swiftness and certainty in the system mean the death penalty is no longer a deterrent. He says death sentences take too long to carry out, and there's no guarantee an execution will actually happen.
In summary, each decade that the death penalty has been in effect, the chances of a murderer getting executed get more and more and more remote.
DeWine pointed to statistics showing of the 337 people who received the death penalty since 1981, 56 have been executed, 41 died of suicide or natural causes waiting to be put to death, and 89 death sentences were removed by judicial action. He also said for the last 10 people executed in Ohio, the average time between sentence and execution was 21 years. DeWine also addressed the toll on violent crime victims' families, saying some want the death penalty, others do not.
But one feeling, however, that seems to be universally held by victims' families is that the long, long wait to see if the death penalty is carried out is frustrating and very hurtful for these victims' families.
Right now, the Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Correction says more than 100 people are on Ohio's death row. With Tuesday's announcement, DeWine now believes none should be put to death. He called on the legislature itself to abolish the death penalty or to put it on the ballot for voters to decide.
The legislature can take this action, and I believe they should take this action.
Governor DeWine has only 6 months left in his term. This debate will likely spill over to the next governor. So I reached out to the major party candidates for their stances. Republican Vivek Ramaswamy's campaign spokesperson Connie Luck shared a statement saying Vivek supports the death penalty only in the most egregious cases and applied only after the legal process has established absolute certainty on every element of the crime, the facts, and the law. Democratic candidate for governor Amy Acton also sent me a statement saying, as governor, my responsibility is to uphold and apply the law of Ohio. Given court rulings, I will respect Ohio's current moratorium. As governor, I will take a hard look at the death penalty and will listen to Ohioans on this issue. Democratic State Senator Nikki Antonio has introduced bipartisan legislation to end the death penalty. She thanked the governor for his announcement and added, we must abolish the death penalty and seek justice for families by instituting life sentences without parole, ending their recurring trauma of the appeal process. And new Ohio Attorney General Andy Wilson put out a statement saying, while he respects the governor's opinion, quote, I'm relieved that the governor didn't use the power of commutation to undo the decisions of the prosecutors, juries, and judges who are closest to the facts and evidence in these cases. The death penalty is currently allowable under Ohio law, and the Ohio Attorney General's office will work with our law enforcement partners and prosecutors' offices to uphold this law and support the families of victims who have suffered at the hands of society's most violent offenders. Of course, we will continue to follow any new developments on the death penalty in Ohio. Still ahead on Face the State, where efforts stand to bring passenger rail back to the Buckeye State after a nearly half-century absence. We hear from the new head of the Central Ohio Passenger Rail Advisory Council, Dublin Mayor Chris Amorose Grooms, next. The last passenger train rolled out of Columbus in 1979, 47 years ago. But now efforts are underway to get passenger rail service to once again roll through Central Ohio. A recent survey by the Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission, or MORPC, found 90% of Central Ohioans want passenger rail service. MORPC is helping to coordinate efforts to bring it back. A handful of potential routes have been identified, and there are even renderings of what a train station at the Columbus Convention Center could look like. That's what you're seeing right there. So what has to fall into place to make it happen? Dublin Mayor Chris Amorose Grooms was just named the new chair of MORPC's Central Ohio Passenger Rail Advisory Council. I talked with her about where the effort stands and what's in motion. First of all, let's just big picture right now. Where does the effort to bring passenger rail back to Central Ohio stand right now?
Sure. Well, currently we are in the Corridor ID program. We are in step 2 of the Corridor ID program. It is a 3-step program. And this step will help us identify where the stops would be, how fast it will go, project potential riders, what is the route, those sorts of things. So we have been working on this. We have been in the Corridor ID program for a little more than 2 years. And so we are currently in step 2 of the 3-step process.
And we've reported that the Federal Railroad Administration accepted 4 proposals originally, right, for further study. And of those, Cleveland, Columbus, Dayton, Cincinnati route had the highest priority as far as those stops. Is that where it still stands on that issue, or is it still up in the air?
So it's still up in the air. You know, Fort Wayne was the applicant on the Midwest Connect route, and the state of Ohio was the applicant on the 3C and D route. So they are running parallel and they're on the same track. No pun intended.
That's going to happen with this topic, isn't it? So what is the role of the Central Ohio Passenger Rail Advisory Council in helping to coordinate all this effort?
Sure. So, you know, one of the big things that we identified when we started this is that we didn't want to go alone. We wanted to bring private partners with us, and the business community in Central Ohio has rallied hugely around this initiative. So what this does is this brings it, what we're working on is bringing with the business community, with multiple jurisdictions throughout the state of Ohio. We are working towards bringing it from a planning activity to an execution activity. So this is the active phase of making this work.
And what does that entail?
Well, it entails a lot of conversations with our federal partners, a lot of our congressional and Senate folks, a lot of conversations with the business community. They have been wildly supportive of this and have traveled with us and doing a lot of research as well. So we have been to Florida to see the Brightline initiative that's there that currently runs from Orlando to Miami. We met with Patrick Goddard, their CEO there. We've been to Texas to look at all of the private passenger rail initiatives that they're doing there. And we've been to Nevada. I'm sure you've heard of the Las Vegas to Los Angeles route that Brightline is currently constructing. And so we met with them to really understand what the challenges are, how to go about doing this, because the service that we want to deliver is the highest level of service. We want this to be something that everyone is very proud of, that is very efficient, that is very clean, that is very business friendly, because this is an economic development driven play.
We'll talk more about that in a minute, but it's been 47 years since the last passenger rail train steamed out.
Yeah.
I don't know,
left the station
here in Columbus. So if all goes as hoped, if all goes as planned, what is the earliest that we could possibly see passenger rail back in Central Ohio?
I think it would be feasible 2029, 2030, something along those lines. I don't think we're that far out. It will, depend largely upon the routes that are selected, the condition of the existing track, the improvements that need to be made. Whereas in the city of Dublin, we have already acquired land for a passenger rail station, so we're ready to go. We could construct that in short order. So, I think that it's going to be hopefully in the nearer term than the farther term.
What would the benefits be of bringing passenger rail back to the area?
Right, so when we talk about the Midwest Connect line, that goes from Chicago to Pittsburgh, and it would pass through cities like Marysville and Dublin and Columbus and Lima. For a long time, we were under the thinking that the state of Ohio's population was shrinking. And the latest information that we have is that the state of Ohio is in fact growing. And we need to provide alternative forms of transportation, and we need to be competitive in the workplace. So many times we'll have companies and come visit, and they want to know about public transit, because if they're coming from, the West Coast, Silicon Valley, if they're coming from the East Coast, they have enjoyed fantastic public transit. And so the play is for us to step up our game and become competitive in the public transit space so that we can attract and retain the greatest companies in the country.
So what are the big hurdles to making this happen? Sure.
Well, the biggest hurdle to everything is typically money, right?
Yeah.
So we need to identify what the costs are going to be. There likely will be a subsidy required, but I think what it's important for folks to understand is that every form of transportation requires a subsidy. Roads are not free. And so
You're
hopefully—
talking like federal funding.
Federal funding, yes. And we are well poised to receive those federal funds. We have an FSP grant, which is a federal state partnership grant, in right now. We'll hopefully hear on that in the coming weeks, which would hugely offset any expenses that we would have. The other challenges are certainly working with the railroads to garner place on these existing freight lines here in the state of Ohio, and coming alongside with them and making it be a win-win, because things work when both people win.
Isn't one of the challenges, though, using the freight lines is the trains wouldn't be able to go at higher speeds?
Well, and that's part of what this data is going to tell us. It's going to say, where do we need an adjacent track? Where would we need to pull off at a station or something like that to allow traffic to pass? So those are the questions that we're working to answer right now.
In your opinion, is this vital to kind of also keeping up with the growth that we're seeing in Central Ohio?
Absolutely. As a local government, in any local government, I happen to be a local government in the city of Dublin, but wherever local government you are, when you're trying to do roadway improvements or roadway extensions or roadway additions, the most difficult part of that is the right-of-way acquisition. You see it playing out in live time right now between the I-71 corridor and 23 and trying to make those connections. And you see how difficult new connections are to make, and the public will to do that. And so we need to find other forms of transportation. And in the state of Ohio, we are blessed with lots of rail lines. Many of them have gone rails to trails, but there are so many rail lines in the state. And these are existing right-of-ways or existing thoroughfares that we can capitalize on if we utilize passenger rail and if we use light rail for transit. So if you lived in the city of Lima and you wanted to come work in the city of Dublin, you would have the opportunity to take the train in. You wouldn't have to make that drive. And say you could answer your emails or you could do so many other things during that time on the train. It's a very efficient way to travel, and one that isn't going to put additional pressure on our roadways. As I mentioned, we are a growing state, and we need to figure out alternative ways to get around.
Can you say that this is going to happen, or is there always that level of uncertainty?
Well, the only thing I'm certain of right now is that I'm sitting here with you. Aside from that, we live in uncertain times. I will say with the highest level of confidence, we have poised ourselves in the exact right spot to be competitive in this space. And if it's going to happen anywhere, I believe that it'll happen here because we're ready.
And Mayor Amoros Grooms broke down the benefits of passenger rail into 3 categories. She says it's an economic development driver, it will give people access to high-quality jobs, and it will promote tourism. Thank you for joining me this week for Face the State. And again, happy Father's Day. I'm Doug Petcash. I'll see you back here next Sunday at 11:30. Have a great day.